In the news tonight, 3 Palestinians are killed in clashes with Israeli security forces in the occupied West Bank, and PLO Secretary General Saeb Erekat requests a UN investigation into Israeli killings of civilians. Jordan condemns what it called a cowardly terror attack on a Shiite gathering in Saudi Arabia that was claimed by Daesh yesterday, killing 5 people in the city of Sayhat. And Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi calls on Egyptians to vote in upcoming parliamentary elections, the first since 2013, as early voting for Egyptian expatriates began today. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. PLO Secretary General Saeb Erekat called on United Nations Special Rapporteur Christoph Heinz to open a prompt investigation into Israel's killing of Palestinians over the past couple of weeks. Erekat, in a letter he sent to Heinz, officially demanded the opening of an investigation into the killings across the West Bank, including Jerusalem, as well as in Arab communities inside the occupied land of 1948. Erekat said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seeks to circumvent his international obligations in order to justify his repressive and unlawful policies instead of ending the occupation and recognizing the rights of Palestinian people. 3 Palestinians were shot dead today in what Israel said were thwarted knife attacks in Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank. Others were shot and injured with rubber-coated steel bullets, while several others suffocated due to tear gas inhalation. At least 40 Palestinians and 7 Israelis have died in street violence over the past 2 weeks, triggered by Palestinians' anger over increased Jewish violations in Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. In one of the shootings near the West Bank city of Hebron, Israel claimed a Palestinian attempted to stab an Israeli civilian who was carrying a gun and then shot and killed the attacker, while an eyewitness, a high school student, said Jewish settlers attacked the unarmed Palestinian. And in a neighborhood in East Jerusalem, Israeli border police also claimed that a 16-year-old Palestinian drew a knife and tried to stab the officers who shot him dead, the spokesman said. While in Hebron, a Palestinian woman was shot dead by an Israeli policewoman after the woman stabbed her in the hand, according to the Israeli security. And yesterday, during a special session of the UN Security Council held to discuss the escalating violence in the occupied Palestinian land, Jordan's permanent representative to the United Nations, Dina Qawar, blamed Israel for escalating the situation. She said Israel must keep the status quo in Jerusalem and refrain from any actions that aim to divide the Al-Aqsa Mosque. She reiterated Jordan's position towards holy sites in Jerusalem, saying the kingdom reserves all diplomatic and legal options to defend the city. Tunisian President Al-Baji Qaid al-Sibsi begins a state visit to Jordan on Tuesday upon invitation by His Majesty King Abdullah. During his 2-day visit to the kingdom, the Tunisian president will hold talks with His Majesty on Arab and regional developments. Al-Sibsi will also meet with a number of senior officials. Russia's Air Force has made 36 sorties in Syria, hitting 49 Daesh targets in the last 24 hours, said a statement by the Russian Defense Ministry. The targets were hit in Hama, Idlib, Latakia, Damascus and Aleppo regions, according to the statement. Since the beginning of Russia's military operations in Syria at the end of September, a total of 669 sorties were made, hitting 456 targets. Meanwhile, in an interview with a Russia TV channel, Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev said Moscow's military operation is not to keep Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in power, but to defeat Daesh, adding that a Syrian government should be a civilized democratic one. And on whether the country should be ruled by Assad, Medvedev said it was up to the Syrian people, but at the moment, he is the legitimate president. On the ground in Syria, troops backed by Hezbollah and Iranian fighters are said to have made advances in their offensive to retake territory around the northern city of Aleppo from terrorists, according to the Observatory for Human Rights. The campaign around Aleppo, which the army launched yesterday, is one of several assaults it has waged against rebel fighters since Russian jets began carrying out airstrikes. The observatory said the army and its allies retook 3 villages amid fierce fighting, in which at least 17 Daesh members and 8 soldiers or allied forces were killed. And in Iraq, forces backed by militia fighters continued their push into the northern part of Salahuddin province on the fourth day of a major offensive aimed at removing Daesh terrorist group from the province. Counter-terrorism forces and volunteer militia fighters recaptured the presidential complex of former President Saddam Hussein in Makhul Mountain, just north of the key oil town of Bishi. Footage shows Iraqi counter-terrorism forces deployed in and around the buildings of the presidential site. The video also shows a tunnel dug by Daesh terrorists inside one of the buildings of the site to move weapons and fighters to and from the area. Jordan has condemned the terrorist attack on a Shiite gathering in the Saudi city of Sayhat that claimed an innocent life. State Minister for Media Affairs and government spokesperson Mohammed al-Momani said such acts of cowardly terror prove again that terrorists do not have any objective but to kill, spread horror and incite sedition. Momani voiced Jordan's solidarity with Saudi Arabia in confronting terrorism and extended the government's condolences to the Saudi government and the families of the victims. A gunman yesterday shot and killed 5 people in an attack on a Shiite Muslim meeting hall before being shot dead by police. The attack was claimed by Daesh. Over to Yemen, and an aid worker from the United Arab Emirates was shot dead in the city of Aden. The aid worker was traveling in an armored vehicle with a group of Emiratis. Security forces said the gunmen were unknown. Yemen's government, meanwhile, is saying it is studying an invitation from the United Nations to attend talks aimed at ending the war between the Saudi-led coalition and the Houthi fighters, who now control much of the country. Government spokesman Rajah Badi said the government would respond within 48 hours, while the Houthis did not respond. The United Nations hopes negotiations would start by the end of this month. Previous UN-sponsored peace talks faltered in June after President Abd Rabbo Mansour Hadi's government demanded that the Houthis pull out of cities captured since last September as a precondition for a ceasefire. Egyptians residing abroad began casting votes today, while domestic polls will open tomorrow in the country's first parliamentary election since 2013. Embassies and consulates in 139 countries will be opened for 2 days of voting. The election will take place in 2 phases, concluding in early December.
I expect there to be a large turnout, as Egyptian citizens feel national pride. It's very important for them to elect their own parliament. Choosing wisely is vital because according to the new constitution, Egypt is now a parliamentary republic, so the power of the parliament will be great. If I elect someone who is not qualified, this will affect the political life and the future of Egypt.
In a televised speech, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called on all Egyptians to vote. At least 185,000 military troops will secure the election in the first phase, joined by 180,000 police. Egypt has been without a parliament since it was dissolved by a court ruling in 2012.
I, and in a direct form, call on all Egyptians to go to polling stations and to strongly assemble to achieve our last demand that we've agreed on. I call on all of you, men and women, young and elderly, farmers and workers from across the country, assemble for the sake of the country and celebrate choosing your representatives and choose well.
12 migrants believed to be from Syria and Afghanistan, including 4 children and a baby, drowned off the coast of Turkey as they tried to reach the Greek island of Lesbos. A Turkish Coast Guard official said 23 people were rescued, some by a Turkish fishing boat. Almost 400,000 people have arrived in Greece this year, according to the UN refugee agency UNHCR, overwhelming the crisis-stricken government's ability to cope. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Angela Merkel is scheduled to travel to Istanbul tomorrow to meet Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan and discuss proposals on the migrant issue. Erdogan said the EU has woken up too late to Turkey's importance in stemming the flow of refugees and accused it of insincerity. Meanwhile, migrants streaming across the Balkans reached Slovenia today, diverted overnight by the closure of Hungary's border with Croatia. Elsewhere, a migrant trying to enter Britain was found dead near the tracks of the Channel Tunnel amid a surge in people massing at Calais. A Eurotunnel spokesman said the death is a grim reminder of the dangers of trying to cross the channel illegally. Here's more on the situation in Calais.
They call this camp in Calais on France's north coast the jungle. Only a few weeks ago it housed about 3,000 people. French authorities say the population now has doubled as more migrants come in and fewer are able to move on across the channel to the United Kingdom. As winter approaches, inhabitants of the makeshift camp say the falling temperatures are making life harder. So too is the language barrier that divides migrants from different countries, according to 27-year-old Mohammed from Sudan.
And life sometimes nationality fighting, Sudan against Afghanistan fighting, all kind of something little thing because of I don't understand what you are saying and he don't understand what you are saying.
French authorities say Pas de Calais is receiving more asylum requests than any other French department, 2,100 since the beginning of the year. That's up from 900 last year and 300 the year before. The influx of newcomers has prompted some longtime Calais residents to try to leave, according to this man who works at a furniture removal company.
I know people who want to move away, but their problem is they can't sell their homes. There are migrants, so people don't dare buy.
Britain's Interior Ministry has declined to comment on the recent increase of migrants, and those who fled war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East now sit in limbo in France.
U.S. Airways became history today as the carrier's flight reservations moved over to American Airlines in one of the last steps in the creation of the world's largest air carrier. U.S. Airways Flight 1939, named for the airline's founding year, landed in Philadelphia in the morning, marking the final flight for the airline, which merged with American Airlines. All future flights will fly under the American Airlines banner following the completion of a merger in 2013. To Colombia and the country's largest fashion and beauty event, returning with the 15th year of Cali Expo Show, bringing together 2016 spring-summer collections from top national designers and others from around the globe. Bettina Spitz unveiled her new collection intended to transport viewers to the 70s in an explosion of color and texture, marking a bohemian moment somewhere among war, peace and love. Another feature of the opening night was Andres Otalora, in which he mixed things up with his curiously named collection Glamping, that is all about glamour, intense and in camping. And with traditional knits and embroidery, designer Adriana Santa Cruz brought the evening home to the aesthetics of Colombia's indigenous groups. Her collection, dubbed Marriage, aims to display the union of opposing tones and textures based on national artisan techniques. Cristiano Ronaldo overtook Raúl as Real Madrid's record scorer when he found the net with a trademark long-ranger pile driver in today's La Liga game to Levante for his 324th goal for the Spanish club. Ronaldo needed a mere 310 matches across 7 seasons to overtake Raúl's tally of 323 goals amassed in 741 games over 16 years. Alfredo Di Stefano is the only other Real player to get past the 300 mark. Ronaldo's goals are spread across La Liga, the Champions League, the King's Cup, the Spanish Super Cup and the European Super Cup. President of Asian Soccer Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa of Bahrain is entering the FIFA presidency contest. The move comes after a UEFA meeting on Thursday, which, barring another twist in the tale, appears to have marked the end of Frenchman Michel Platini's presidential campaign. Sheikh Salman had initially backed Platini, but the Frenchman's troubles, which originated with a 2011 payment of 2 million Swiss francs from Blatter's FIFA for work done 9 years earlier, have dramatically changed the electoral landscape. Other candidates may yet emerge. And finally, for a quick look at the weather forecast, fair conditions continue for the rest of tonight with southwesterly light to moderate winds. Tomorrow, temperatures remain above seasonal average with moderate weather prevailing in the highlands, while it remains relatively hot in the Badia and the Jordan Valley. Winds will be southwesterly moderate, changing to brisk in the afternoon and raising dust in the Badia region. In the Gulf of Aqaba, it will be relatively hot with northerly moderate winds and slightly high seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. 3 Palestinians are killed in clashes with Israeli security forces in the occupied West Bank, and PLO Secretary General Saeb Erekat requests a UN investigation into Israeli killings of civilians. Jordan condemns what it called a cowardly terror attack on a Shiite gathering in Saudi Arabia that was claimed by Daesh yesterday, killing 5 people in the city of Sayhat. And Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi calls on Egyptians to vote in upcoming parliamentary elections, the first since 2013, as early voting for Egyptian expatriates began today. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Ali Tuqan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.